Have for you this morning. Now, it's a beautiful Thursday morning and we are live from our Abuja studio. Now, this is FCT Brief. Our focus today is on Nigeria's pension and housing sector, where controversy has emerged between the Federal Housing Authority Mortgage Bank and the National Pension Commission. Allegations of blacklisting have raised concerns among contributors and retirees over their retirement savings. Now, the Federal Housing Authority Mortgage Bank, FHA mortgage, has come under the spotlight after reports surfaced that the institution was allegedly blacklisted by the National Pension Commission. Now, the development sparked fears among workers and retirees who rely on their pension funds for mortgage facilities. However, management of FHA mortgage has swiftly reacted, dismissing the claims as misleading and unfounded. According to the bank, it remains duly credited to access retirement savings account under the guidelines of PENCOM and continues to process applications without hindrance. Now, the statement further explained that the alleged blacklisting was a misrepresentation of regulatory compliance process, assuring contributors that their investments are safe and accessible.
The issue has nonetheless raised wider questions about transparency in pension fund administration and the communication gap between regulators, mortgage institutions, and contributors. Experts in the sector are calling for clearer collaboration between PENCOM and accredited mortgage banks to safeguard the integrity of retirement savings and restore public confidence. For now, FHA Mortgage insists it is operating within the law and remains committed to helping workers translate their retirement savings into home ownership. But the controversy underscores the need for stronger synergy between regulators and service providers in the pension sector. For more on this, we have Oyebade Olumide Adebowale, and he's the Chief Finance Officer of the Federal Housing Mortgage Bank. It's good to have you in our studio this morning, Mr. Adebowale. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, PENCOM says FHA Mortgage Bank violated housing loan guidelines, but you've dismissed that claim. Tell us, what is inaccurate about the PENCOM's decision?
Well, a lot of things are inaccurate. Okay. First and foremost, we have a guideline. And like we have consistently maintained, we have followed the guidelines to the letter. But what we find really surprising and amusing is the fact that the decision of PENCOM, in our opinion, is rather prejudicial. I mean, you don't go out to the public and just blacklist without recourse to the legal entity that is involved. I make bold to say here that as at today, there is no correspondence whatsoever between FHA Mortgage Bank and PENCOM indicating that we have actually violated the PENCOM guidelines. We also got to hear about this from the public space. Imagine customers calling to tell you, a partner, a practitioner, that you have been blacklisted, whereas the regulator has refused to reach out to you directly.
So you're saying that there is no proper communication between PENCOM and the FHA Mortgage Bank?
Whatsoever, none. Now, look at it from this perspective. If you have a wife and you both are having issues, the proper thing to do is to sit down and discuss. You won't take your wife to the public space and begin to undress her there in the public. Now, I decided to use that analogy because that seems to be what has happened here. We got to find out from grapevine up until 19th when we saw an online Punch publication announcing that 7 mortgage banks, including my bank, FHA Mortgage Bank, has been blacklisted. Now, one would think that the right thing to do is, if there are violations, you reach out to the practitioners, make them understand that you are violating. And if nothing is done thereafter, you can wield the big stick. Such communication has not taken place.
Now, what is the present situation? Because according to the regulations that PENCOM released, your bank and others have been blacklisted, which means you will no longer be able to process, and you're still processing. Now, where does this place customers who are trying to process their mortgage, and how will this affect confidence, trust? Because it has to do with a lot of trust. If my money is with PENCOM and I've made some contributions for mortgage, and PENCOM is saying, look, you don't have capacity to process, where am I in this whole process?
In fact, that brings us to the bigger question. I would even love, before I attend to that question, let me start by first and foremost appreciating the President Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for giving, coming up with this initiative. The whole idea is to help the teeming population to have access to their pension towards equity contribution to owning a residential mortgage. Now, if you take out housing, you take out clothing, and you talk about, food, clothing, and shelter. If you're able to meet these needs, people will no doubt be happy. And I want to commend the government for giving this initiative. Now, to come to your question. Now, what we are simply saying is that the communication out there is totally unjust, misleading. It is also capable of eroding public confidence. The average Nigerian out there would not really immediately be able to distinguish between whether we are talking about pension fund here or whether the bank itself is not healthy. The communication seems to look as if we are saying these banks can no longer originate mortgages. Now, we partner not only with PENCOM, we partner with various government agencies and private developers. We're in business with Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, where we've assessed NHF fund for people to own their houses to thousands of Nigerians. We partner with family-owned funds. We partner with Nigerian Mortgage Refinancing Company. We partner with a whole lot of, organizations out there. And we have also assessed this fund for quite a number of people. PENCOM itself says, as at the end of the first quarter of 2025, about 24,582 applications have been successfully processed. And I make bold to tell you that out of this number, FHA Mortgage Bank, my bank, has been able to successfully assess for more than 5,900 Nigerians. That represents about 24% of the number. That is huge. And then you come to the public space and discredit such an organization without recourse to them, without due process. It creates panic. There is a lot of apathy out there. People are beginning to lose confidence in the arrangement. One would have thought that a more collaborative approach should have been, applied. Caution should have been brought in towards addressing this matter. And that's what we are saying.
Well, we'll still dive deeper into this matter, but that will be right after this short break in FCT Brief. And we're still discussing PENCOM's recent decision to blacklist some mortgage banks, including FHA Mortgage Bank. Now, before we went on the break, you were telling us, some things. I would like you to walk us through the process of generating mortgage loans approved under your fund. How transparent is it?
Extremely. Now, with particular reference to the 25% RSA. Now, the procedure is quite straightforward. A contributor to the scheme, an eligible contributor, approaches a mortgage bank like us, and they will indicate their interest to access 25% of their retirement savings towards equity contribution. Now, there are certain documentations, forms from PENCOM, and certain internal forms that will be completed, and they are expected to get an offer for a property. All these are expected to be packaged together by the mortgage bank, which in this case is FHA Mortgage Bank, and they are forwarded to the PFA, the Pension Fund Administrator of the applicant, who reviews the documents, and if they are okay with it, they send same to PENCOM for approval. Now, once it is approved, the funds are disbursed. And note, the funds are disbursed directly to the account of the beneficiary. So that's a summary of the process.
So with these concerns raised about accountability, what safeguards are there by your institution to ensure that, you protect the retirement savings of, those account holders?
Okay. Now, don't forget that we are talking about 25% of their contribution. Now, this retirement savings in its entirety rests with PENCOM. Okay? We have a pension for custodians who holds those funds, and within the framework of certain guidelines, does whatever they have to do with it. What we are talking about here is that allowing people to access a certain percentage, which is 25% of it, to enable them make up equity contribution towards acquiring a residential mortgage. Okay? So it's the same approval from PENCOM that allows the eligible contributors to have access to those funds. Now, where we come in, we are a go-between. We're like a middleman in the process. Our own job is to facilitate the collection of the 25% in question. And of course, to ensure that the customers apply the 25% to acquire as equity contribution towards acquiring a residential mortgage. So we are not the custodian of the funds, okay? We are only responsible to the extent of the 25% in question. Okay,
going by the content of the PENCOM's letter,
yes.
It seems as if the beneficiaries, the retirees or the worker has applied for mortgage for the release of the 25%, but your bank seems not to be facilitating, going beyond the application to make release of other funds into that account.
Far from it.
Because I'd like you to clear, is it an issue of liquidity problem, bureaucracy, or mismanagement? Because definitely they have a reason for blacklisting. So what do you suspect? Is there a bureaucratic problem, or you think they're suspecting something in between your bank?
If you are suspecting anything, nobody gets to know until you say it to the public. And that's what we are saying. Everybody can suspect. You can't suspect anything. The question is, what have you done to uncover the truth or otherwise behind your suspicion? To my knowledge, to our knowledge, nothing whatsoever.
Have you reached out to them after this letter?
Of course we have. We're expecting to hear from them. Now, like I said, we didn't get to hear directly from them. We heard from the public space, internet space, people calling in, getting worried, getting agitated. And we told them we still maintain we are not aware. Until we saw a Punch newspaper online publication on the 19th listing our bank, together with 6 other mortgage banks, has been blacklisted. Of course, we wouldn't know why. But making reference to that publication, they said loans are not being booked. And what I question is this. What is their basis for concluding that loans are not being booked? Now, for the records, I mentioned earlier on that we have assessed this 25% for more than 5,900 beneficiaries out of the 124,000 that PENCOM, pardon my figures. Now, that's about 24%. Now, all these beneficiaries have assessed their funds. All these beneficiaries have their houses. Okay? So where is the infraction coming from? And that's the question. Now, if you are even saying there are infractions, you have a partner in business, don't you think you should sit together first, look at where the problem is coming from, and try to solve the problem before you go to dance in the public?
Now, in your bank, do you have a representative of PENCOM in your mortgage bank? Is there any representative?
I don't think there's any. There is no mortgage bank that have representative of PENCOM in their office. Okay. They are not domiciled in any of the mortgage banks. Like the process is simple. We package. Of course, we communicate with us with the pension fund administrators. We don't have direct recourse to PENCOM. Okay. The applications are sent to the administrators, the various PFAs. It is the PFAs that interface with PENCOM. Okay? So apparently, PENCOM regulates the PFAs. Our own job is the alter ego, help people access their funds, which we have been doing to the best of our ability and within the framework of the guidelines issued out by PENCOM.
All right. The guidelines allows RSA holders to use voluntary contributions when their 25% isn't enough equity. Now, realistically, how many workers do you think can have access to this kind of framework?
Well, that's a discussion for another day. You see, it is such that, I mean, one of the reasons why the government came up with this initiative in the first instance is, of course, a realization of how difficult it has actually become for people to own their houses. And that's why they said, okay, if it is difficult for you to pay up your equity, because for you to take up mortgage, you need to have a personal stake. It is difficult for you to pay up your equity. Let us assist you. The government is saying, let's assist you by giving you 25% of your retirement savings as equity contribution. The whole idea is to make it easy for you and I and every other customer out there to be able to own a house. So if you take this out, I doubt if, I mean, it's been difficult so far. That's why the initiative came up. Now, PENCOM has said that up to the first quarter of the year, 2025, about 149.84 billion naira has been disbursed. Just to, assume, just look at it, what 149.84 billion naira will do to the teeming population in terms of being able to acquire their houses. The effect is massive. And that's why we should not allow this laudable initiative of the government to be swept under the carpet. It cannot die.
Okay, now let's look at the practical means. Maybe that amount you talked about might be amongst the high-end earners, the high-end earners. Now, the low-income earners, how easy, even with the 25%, because their pension contributions might not even be, by the time you do 25%, might not even be any way near being able to acquire a house. Now, how do you think this can really work out for the ordinary worker, who his pension contribution is nothing, even if you take your 25%? How do we get this out?
Yeah, that's a very good question. You see, these are issues that need to be looked into. Remember, this initiative is fresh, is new. And as is customary with any new thing, there are bound to be problems. There are bound to be, teething issues here and there. It is an established fact that for low-income earners, the 25% we are talking about might not even be enough, to make up for the equity, let alone buying a house. I mean, I've seen people assess as low as 500,000 naira, as low as 700,000 naira. Tell me, what house are you going to buy with that amount in the Nigeria of today? So these are issues. And that is why a more collaborative approach is required. All hands must be on deck towards solving this problem. But the interesting thing about the program is that the benefit cuts across. However little your money is, you can have access to 25% of it.
But the 25% will not do anything.
Of course, that's another matter.
Now let's look beyond this pension, because you're still in the business.
Yes.
Now, what are the initiatives you think can be introduced so that the low-income earners can also, we'll be talking about housing for all by the year so, to make it a really practicable stuff? What are those things that can be done? Because why is it in Nigeria that mortgages don't really work and it works elsewhere? So what can be done?
A lot can be done,
okay. And
a lot is being done. Now let's look at what is being done, and then we'll go into what can still be done. Now the federal government has, rolled up a number of initiatives. Now, the 25% pension fund we are talking about is just one of it. Now, we have the Ministry of Finance MREF fund that's out there now for people to also be able to buy houses. Under the MREF arrangement, you can access up to 100 million, okay, for a maximum tenure of 20 years. Of course, subject to affordability. We will appraise you to determine how much you qualify for. That is one initiative that will help people to ultimately buy houses. We have the family-owned funds there. Family-owned fund is also an agency of the government. We are working with them. They have various programs. For example, you have the Help to Own program, which is an initiative coming from family, whereby they contribute a certain percentage, and the mortgage bank contributes a certain percentage towards helping people acquire their houses. We have the Federal Housing Authority, which is the parent organization of my bank. FHA has been building houses everywhere, affordable houses. They also have Help to Own a program. For example, in our estate in Zuba, a lot of Nigerians have benefited through the help to own arrangement administered through my bank, FHA Mortgage Bank. And that one is very simple. Rent to own, I beg your pardon. Through the rent to own arrangement, you are given possession, you are allowed to live in the house, and you pay over time as if you are paying rent, and ultimately the house becomes yours. These are initiatives. Now, if we strengthen the whole of these arrangements and we work together, all the agencies of government that are involved in housing needs to be one. Through a collaborative effort. I mean, you can't downplay the power of collaboration. Through a collaborative effort, this laudable initiative of housing for all by a certain years will be achievable even before the time it comes. A lot can be done.
Well, you've spoken about, the structures that have been set in place, especially with the FHA. We've seen so many commissioning of houses by the FHA, which, you're collaborating, they are also collaborating with your bank. I'd like to know, how equitable is the distribution? Does it cut across board, or is it just to a select few of privileged individuals?
Well, it cuts across board. You see, we have low, middle, and high-end income earners. Now, estates have been developed in various parts of the Federation to cater for different strata of the population. Now, let's come back to Federal Housing Authority, our parent company. We have houses in Zuba, for example, here in FCT. That is expected, that is a low income estate. We have houses in Express View that was just commissioned about a few days ago, Express View Lugbe. That is for middle income earners. We have houses developed in Gusape, okay, for high-end income earners. We have houses in Festac, for example. I mean, you all know the story behind Festac Town. Festac was developed by FHA. Festac houses both low, middle, and high income earners. So we have houses all over. We have Gombe, for example. We have an estate in Gombe. We have in Kaduna, Goningora. We have in Odupani. We have in Bayelsa. So we have developments that cater for every Nigerian, irrespective of your level of income.
But those are initiatives.
Sorry, hold on a bit. With PENCOM's action now in play, how would you say it will make it easier for, this RSA holders to access loans? Won't it slow down the process?
You're talking about the blacklisting?
Yes.
Of course it will slow down the process. So
how would your bank now protect these RSA holders, to ensure that this doesn't affect them and reassure them as well?
Well, we have other alternatives. They have alternatives. The National Housing Fund window is there, right? Now, I really don't want us to deviate from the crux of this matter, but there are alternatives. The National Housing Fund window, we collaborate with Federal Mortgage Bank to assess mortgages for our teaming customers. NHF loan, which is administered by Federal Mortgage Bank, runs at 6% per annum. We have assessed for thousands of Nigerians. As I speak with you, we have about 9 billion naira awaiting disbursement with Federal Mortgage Bank. So there are initiatives. What we are simply saying is, we are not saying that there are no other initiatives. We are saying that let all these programs, all these initiatives be properly annexed so that it can cut across. I mean, it's very simple. Where you have options, you have alternatives. If A does not work for you, you go to B or C or D.
So if this blacklisting persists, what will you say to those who are doing business with you, those who already have contributions with you? Are you going to reroute it?
Well, first and foremost, this blacklisting will not subsist. I can tell you that confidently. What is required is a collaborative effort. And like I said, as far as we are concerned, it's an alleged blacklisting. I mean, no formal communication.
So are you reaching out to PENCOM to have a discussion with them? We
have written a letter to them requesting that the publication be retracted and that we should discuss this. We are awaiting their response. No, but I am confident that at the end of the day, this matter will be resolved. I'm confident. However, the first step in resolving the matter is to withdraw the damaging publication out there, because this goes a long way to demarket my bank. I mean, it is not good for business.
All right, we must say thank you so much for bringing clarity to this matter on the table. We definitely look forward to how it will be resolved. Thank you so much, Mr. Adebowale, for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that's what we have for you today. Thank you for being a part of the conversation. We'll now hand you over to Lagos, where Ibrahim